Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the seventh. This one's the seventh episode of the Industry and Esports Insider podcast, featuring the people and personalities in the esports industry. I'm your host, Kerry Wananen, and today I'm joined by Tahir Hasandjekic, or better known as Tashi by the community.
Well done.
I
Thanks
had to
for having
practice
me.
a little bit, but I did it. And Tashi is the esports and viewership lead for Halo at Microsoft. So if you know anything about Halo Esports, you gotta know Tashi. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you on. So as I just said, Tashi, you've been so popular, and I mean, not necessarily, I guess I would say popular, but well-known. Okay, let's say well-known in the Halo community and the Halo esports community for a long time. You've been involved in Halo for over 8 years. And I would just love to hear the story of how you got involved in that, and also how you've managed to stick around. I think that is a lifetime in esports years.
So I'm a Halo kid through and through. The first time I played Halo, I was 16 years old. This is Halo Combat Evolved. I think I was a sophomore in high school. And I was hooked, like, from the start. I used to go to my friend's house, and we used to play 4-player split screen on one Xbox, Prisoner FFA. And I found myself like winning most of the games and just like really like enjoying playing Halo multiplayer. And then Halo 2 came out, and for me, I think that's where it kind of like took off to another level. I got serious about playing in the ranked playlist, and I started watching the MLG tournaments, and I even attended, in an MLG playoff event in 2006 in New York, where I'm originally from. And, I just got super ingrained in that whole culture. And, it started with Halo, and I started watching more and more esports and following different scenes. But Halo was always the one that was, closest to my heart. And from there, I just got more involved in the whole community, posting on forums. I even streamed on Justin TV before like any pros did. Had like montages on YouTube that I used to release, and used to write blogs. I was just like anything I could do to like be involved in the Halo community, I did that. Of course, like watching all the esports tournaments as well for years and years, and competing online myself. So, I was just always involved in the scene, and I knew, since I was, a teenager, that I wanted to work on Halo. And an opportunity came up in 2014 on the community team, and I packed my bags and moved all the way across the country to Washington. And, I took the role of community coordinator at the team, or on the team at 343. And, at the start, it was community support, and the HCS and Halo Esports was not really a thing at that point in time, at least not in an official sense. And, there were also people on the team who were very interested in, running an esports program, especially as we were leading up to the launch of MCC. And it was going to bring back all of these old games where there was so much kind of esports history. So it felt like a natural kind of point. And, the lead at that time, Che, who was my manager, and Bravo, who is a caster now for Halo, and many more on the team, of course, were involved with kind of starting the league, HCS originally, and that was in partnership with ESL and Twitch at the time. And, I started really just helping with like a competition and operations standpoint, where, I was assisting in creating the rule book and understanding kind of the format of the league and the point system that we had, and also just operating the events and making sure they ran kind of as smoothly as they possibly could. And then, from there, I just got more and more involved and kind of integrated into everything. And, we had some folks, move on to different teams or different projects or different studios and whatnot. And, I just kind of stuck with it. I was, as time went on, I was still in the community team at the time. So esports was really like a part-time job for everyone on the community team back then. And we didn't have our own team. And it really wasn't until my manager today, Elizabeth Van Wyk, who also was there at the start for HCS, really, I think, helped us position kind of HCS and esports kind of more officially in the studio. Because like I said, like we were all just part of the community team. And she was the one who kind of helped make it more official. Hey, we need our own esports team. They need their own budget. They need their own kind of business plan for years out. And that was, roughly 2018. So, I was kind of lead producer at that time. So just making sure the team was a well-oiled machine and everything we did was great. And, as Halo Infinite was kind of being developed in the background, and this is now like 2019, 2020, we started to really put the program together is when I became lead. And, and now, I oversee and manage the esports program and viewership. And, for me, like, it's my life passion. I love esports. I love Halo. I love Halo Esports in this community. Like in my mind, like, I'm like a homegrown person. Like this is just what I love. So I think that's why I'm here for so long.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised, honestly, to hear that sort of Halo didn't really operate with any sort of esports budget while it was so popular during the MLG days. I mean, I think that's like MLG, I think really raised the profile of not only Halo, but like really sort of said that Halo is, at least at the time, America's esport. That was like the one, at least from what I remember. And that was before you joined in. And it seemed like that they sort of helped develop what Halo Esports would become. And now part of that team with Esports Engine helps out with Halo, the Halo Esports today, correct?
That's right. Yeah, and I want to clarify that, in the kind of old MLG days that I talked about, 2003 to 2010 or 11, like 343 Industries wasn't actually established. Like it was all kind of operated by Bungie, still through ownership of Microsoft, but 343 didn't kind of officially step to the esports realm or even have the opportunity to until 2013 with Halo 4 and the global championship that was done there. So, I think that was kind of a big spark, and there was a lot of energy within 343 Industries, and that kind of helped fuel it. But in the old days, like 343 wasn't even a thing. So I just wanted to clarify that. But you're right, we do work very closely with Esports Engine. That core team has been part of MLG since the beginning. And, we're just like very thankful for having them part of the family and helping us kind of oversee everything and also operate, our majors and the upcoming World Championship.
And so Microsoft is based in Washington State. And as far as I know, also Bungie is the same, and 343 also in the neighborhood, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And this year, they're bringing the Halo Championship Series finals back to the Seattle area in the Seattle Convention Center, right? And that's happening at the end of October. So what can we expect now that LANs are again becoming a sort of thing, and like we can really, I think personally really feel the thirst and the hunger that people are super excited to be back at LANs, and that the fever is as high as it's ever been for live events and seeing the esports spectacle, if you will, and experiencing that. What can we expect seeing this coming in at the end of October?
Yeah, so the Halo World Championship for us is, we call it like the crown jewel of our roadmap. So at the baseline, you have $1 million tournament, and it caps off the inaugural season for Halo Infinite Esports, which has been really absolutely insane. the competition has never been higher on a global scale. You have more teams in Europe, Mexico, and Australia competing at a higher level than they ever have, against the U.S. powerhouses. And we have kind of a toss-up for who could win it, which is really, really exciting. So that's the baseline, right? You have this like epic tournament, an epic conclusion to what's been an insane season. And surrounding that, we really want to try to make this like our Halo Fest. And, I just want to be clear, it's not the return of the Halo Fest, which was this old event back in 2011. But for us, the kind of spirit of Halo Fest was that if you love Halo for whatever reason, you have a reason to come to the Halo World Championship. And, we are going to have a cosplay contest. We're planning to have this stage with a bunch of developer panels and meet and greets with people on the development team. We're looking to have kind of special guests and quote unquote celebrities at the event that touch different parts of the Halo community. So we really wanted to feel like this is the, one-stop shop for the broader Halo and Xbox community and not just Halo Esports. So, we think there's just a huge appetite for, like you said, the community getting together at a LAN and one environment. And what better location to do it than, in Microsoft Halo's backyard over here in Seattle. So, we're absolutely thrilled for the event. We're just a few months away now, and things are really coming together in terms of production. So, we just can't wait for it to be here.
Yeah. So I lived in Seattle for 7 years, and I went to the Seattle Convention Center a few times for Emerald City Comic Con and PAX a few times. And I think there's an anime convention. I went there a few times. So the convention center is great. And so I can only imagine, I'm pretty jealous that I'm not living there now to be able to attend a Halo LAN event just in my backyard. And the whole time that I lived in Seattle, I, for some reason, was sort of oblivious to anything that was esports related. Like, I know that Valve held the International a few times while I was there, and that just was off my radar or whatever.
You missed out. Those are awesome.
Feeling, I missed that. Yeah, I really did. I've been looking back at all the YouTube videos. It's happened right under my nose, and I absolutely slept on it, which I'm kicking myself for now. Do you have a feeling of, and not that this is necessarily anything that I think Halo Esports is really going for, just Halo in general, the Halo community, but do you feel that there is a sort of regional pride or pull with Halo and Microsoft in the Pacific Northwest? Or do you feel that I guess to reframe that question, where do you see big pockets of like Halo fandom, not only in the US, but in globally?
So, there's a few ways to answer that. I'd say your original question you corrected, I do want to touch on, and the answer is yes. There definitely is a kind of Pacific Northwest pull for Microsoft, Halo, and Seattle. And originally when Bungie made Halo 1, they actually were inspired by the Pacific Northwest and the beautiful forests and nature that we have here to create the Halo ring. And that lives true in Halo Infinite as well. So there is, even integrated into the game, the overall look and feel that is very Pacific Northwest. So it is totally like inline and intentional for why the World Championship is in Seattle. And we feel like having it in Seattle, we can put on a really special event that we wouldn't be able to do on the same level elsewhere. To answer your other question, outside of US, where are kind of the hot spots, we just had an event in Mexico with gaming partners over there, and they are definitely a hot spot for Halo and Xbox. Those fans came out in full effect. We had more viewers online and more teams attending than we've ever had for a Mexico event. And what I love about those fans is they just cheer for everyone and everything. It's not like in the US where people are like, well, Optic's not playing, well, I'm out of here. Or like FaZe aren't playing, I'm out of here. They're like, nope, we're going to sit through every match. We're going to cheer for every team. Even if there's only a double kill, we're going to cheer for it. And honestly, it's like infectious. Like, you're out there and people are just like going nuts. So Mexico is definitely hotspot for us, and we're going to continue, of course, to invest there. Um, I would say outside of that, there are a few pockets in Europe that have a huge fandom for Halo. The UK, France, Germany, Italy, just to name a few. Those are some of the brighter hotspots for Halo. I'd say UK is probably the biggest. Australia and New Zealand also typically have, rich Halo Esports history, especially with the ESL team that's been running events there for almost 2 decades now on Halo. They are really passionate. There's a lot of history in that scene. A lot of those players attended the old MLG events, and now they're kind of passing on to the new generation, with players like Barcode, who are just like, finally able to compete at the highest level globally. So that's a really exciting scene that's kind of bustling. So yeah, those are kind of what I would say is like the hotspot regions outside the US.
And you mentioned a few teams, mentioning Optic and FaZe, and I'm just curious what went into, and maybe you can like reel this back a little bit too with like your time spent at Halo, but like what has gone into selecting the teams that are going to compete in Halo esports, but also how the development of that sort of system came about.
Yeah, so we've obviously been learning a ton since HCS first started. And in Halo 5, it was the first time we had an official relationship with some of the teams. We had some skins in the game for a few of them, like Optic, for example. And that was successful, but we knew where we wanted to go needed to be more, and we knew kind of where the industry was also developing. It just needed to develop more. So from the outset, for Halo Infinite's kind of program development, we knew that teams played a huge part of it, and we wanted to more officially integrate them into the ecosystem rather than just like having a few skins with a few teams. So we created this partnership program, and for us, we really see it as like kind of a 360-degree approach. Like, it's not just like teams have a roster, teams get skins in the game, and that's it. Like, we see the teams as really close partners in the entire ecosystem who have shared goals, right? Driving viewership, driving excitement, participation, monetization. And, we see it as kind of a mutually beneficial relationship that's going to hopefully expand in more parts than just your core 4v4 Halo Esports. And I think you'll see more of that with Forge when it releases later this year and into next year as well. So, the teams we just knew were kind of super important. And I think what we also identified early, which was critical, was we as the publishers, we need to we need to be kind of the center of this, and not from like a ego perspective of like, oh, it's all for us. But we knew we had to kind of be the quarterbacks and align everyone in the ecosystem. And, we knew we also have the unfair advantage in the ecosystem because we make the game. And we can offer opportunities to the ecosystem that, no other organizations can. So it couldn't be a, community grassroots kind of effort that it had been originally with like the MLG days. And the industry is kind of maturing to a point where you're seeing more and more publishers kind of take the reins and being kind of less, hands off. And I think that will just continue to happen because, again, like, the publishers make the game. So ultimately, to use a Halo term, like, it is our mantle of responsibility to also nurture the scene and help it grow and connect as many of the partners in the ecosystem as possible. So, I think identifying that early on was really critical for us because then we could think about, okay, who are the different partners in the ecosystem that are really important to Halo Esports, right? You have teams, you have tournament operators, sponsors, even when we looked at players, of course, too, and how fans plug in. And we really thought about the different dynamics of what this kind of product could offer to all of the different people in the ecosystem and how we can try to make it successful for everyone so that they can continue to invest in Halo Esports for the long term. And we knew that that is critical just for the long-term success of Halo Esports. So that was a multi-year process. I mean, it started with us just like talking to partners and teams. We would go to E3, we would visit their offices, and we would just meet and we would just say, how do you guys think about your business? Where do you see your team going in the next few years? Why or why not have you been in Halo Esports in the past? Why did you leave? How do you think about what games you decide to invest in? We just like gathered all this information from the ecosystem. And then we went to the whiteboard, literally the one that's right there. And we were like, okay, let's start mapping out kind of what our V1 vision is. And then we took that to the partner and said, hey, based on what you told us, here's what we put together. What do you think about this? And they say, oh, this is great. This not so much. And for the team specifically, we went from like V1 to like V7. And ultimately, we refined it to a place with our partner teams who at the time, they were not officially partners. We were just building this partnership program, and they were just trusted people that we had worked with in the past. And they gave us feedback, and then we had an application process, and we selected the teams that we had for launch. So that was kind of what went into all of that. And for us, it's been even though it's been not public, it's been a very collaborative process to get to the launch of Halo Infinite. And I think that's been why it's been successful so far.
I mean, I think I was also super impressed last year when Halo Infinite was announced, and then also immediately Halo Esports was also announced. Like one foot fell and then the other one came, and that really, I think, blew me away, and I blew a lot of people away that people were just anticipating the game to come out, and then maybe there was probably some questions about, okay, is there going to be an esport? But you already had things pretty lined up according to that, or like leading up to that. So I'm curious to see how long did that process take into, and was there necessary coordination with the development of Halo Infinite, knowing also we're definitely launching this game with an esports component, and we're hitting the ground running here, and we're going to plan on working very closely with these partners in a lot of different ways? Or was it sort of like, we're going to work on the esports side a bit, and then the game, we're just timing everything together?
No, there was close collaboration all along the way. And the studio overall is bought in on HCS and esports and our competitive players. And I think it shows with what we launched with, right? You had a ranked playlist day one with competitive settings that were used in the tournaments literally days after the game came out. Like, that doesn't happen by happenstance. Like, that is very close coordination. That is philosophical buy-in and agreement, and that's investment from the studio. So there's a lot of people that worked very hard on that, on the development team, to support all this. We also had our own esports store in the game day one, selling team skins. Like, that, again, doesn't happen by happenstance. That is very close coordination and philosophical buy-in from the development team. Same with observer mode, right? We were ready to go run we literally ran global 4 broadcasts around the world just a few days after the game came out. Like, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back because we still have a lot of work to do, but we're pretty sure no one's really ever done that for a new game launch, like all of that included. And, we're obviously just super proud of the work and effort, not only by 343, but all of our partners as well, who are critical in all that, the teams, the tournament operators, broadcast talent, everyone, for just being ready to go. To touch more into your question about kind of what it took, it was a multi-year kind of process, and it was not without its hurdles. I mean, this is now, 2019 going into 2020. We had to move development of the game remote as COVID kind of came into the picture. The game was also delayed at one point, which, for us, we made it a goal for us to have the entire full year roadmap available day one when the game came out. So all cities, dates, venues, everything publicly available for an entire year. That was extremely challenging when you talk about COVID. And for us, like we could only see so far out in front of us. Like the idea of LAN events was like, we're not really sure when that's going to be possible. And then the game delayed. So we had to like pick up and redo our roadmap like 4 or 5 times. So, it was a extremely like arduous process. Everyone was remote, so we had to do everything virtually, and everyone's figuring out how you do something so like creatively in depth remote. So it was extremely challenging. I think ultimately everyone's proud of what we were able to accomplish, and we still have a ton of work to do, obviously, and a lot of big ambitions. But it was day after day of calls, with international partners, with the development team, play testing, giving feedback, having outside community members play test, having outside partners give feedback on the program. Just this like crazy march towards launch.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really compare Halo with Valorant, but I would say that Valorant is sort of similar in a way of like a game that was rolled out. They didn't obviously have esports set in stone when the game came out, but that was sort of Riot knew that, hey, when we're putting this game out, we're going to try to make it an esport. And I think that is sort of not necessarily a trend, but I think for publishers that are bought into the esports ecosystem and see how it works and get it and understand, okay, this is how we can monetize it. Here's how we can make it entertaining. Here's how we can involve different partners and different brands and such. Then they can develop a title or develop their newest title to be an esport. But as I said sort of before, that esports was Halo was foundational in especially North American esports. It was sort of the first one that really held the torch and showed, here's how we can do this system that resembles traditional sports but is completely different and introduces a whole new set of entertainment and a whole new set of personalities and such. And so to bring it back to a question, with Valorant creating its new sort of franchise mode where they've also had to make selections and open applications for who's going to be a partner or whatever. I'm curious to hear if you have any insights on that process that you went through on the Halo Microsoft 343 Industries side of things, seeing somebody else going through a different but similar process, and what your opinion of how do you bring these sort of external, though endemic partners that are going to be competing in your title, how do you bring them in and how do you choose who's going to be able to participate?
Yeah, so I can't speak specifically into what Riot is doing for Valorant. Obviously, I don't have all of the details there, but I have a number of friends who work there, and I just want to take a moment to give kudos. Like, Valorant is an awesome game. It's an amazing ecosystem that they're building. I'm sure they're very happy with the success that game has had, and I'm excited to see how the sport continues to evolve. So, massive shout out to everyone there kind of working on that game and that franchise. I think for us, we knew from the outset that this was not going to be a kind of franchise ecosystem. We weren't selling permanent spots in the league. We weren't going to be charging teams, X amount of dollars to invest in the league. We knew from the outset it was going to be more of like a partnership program where there's not a fee to get in, but we do expect there to be an investment in the scene that we then provide opportunities for teams to recoup on that investment. And the reason being is, we knew Halo Infinite, was just going to be a brand new game. And we didn't feel comfortable having a, permanent partnership or kind of a franchise ecosystem, day one. So we're not like philosophically against the franchise system. There might be a time down the road where Halo becomes franchise, but we really wanted to make sure we were standing on our feet as a game and as an ecosystem before we kind of explored avenues that way. And I would imagine the team at Riot has learned a lot from League of Legends that they're now pushing over to Valorant and any other games that they're going to work on. So, they've got obviously a ton of experience and kind of a system for how they do things. For us, the the partnership process, as we've seen it so far, has been very successful. We have an amazing stable of teams. At day one with the game, they're earning revenue from the skins in the game. They also have merchandise opportunities and some more we're going to reveal later this year. We're very open with sponsorships. So, if they have a booth at our event, which we don't charge a fee for, then they can sell merchandise there and we don't charge a fee for that. They can sell it to sponsors, and as long as it doesn't conflict with league sponsors, then it's okay, and we don't charge a fee there. So for us, we try to think about how can we open as many doors as possible for our partner teams and make the idea of walking through the door so enticing that it would almost be foolish not to walk through it. So that's the way we position things, and I think year one you saw a few different touch points with the community, right? A few different merch opportunities, a few different booths. I think next year you're going to see a more, what I alluded to earlier, kind of that 360-degree approach where teams are going to get more and more integrated into the ecosystem and even more integrated into the game itself. So that's the way we kind of see the partnership program. And for year two, because we had such kind of immense success at launch, we were able to add in more teams. And we took a very kind of slow and calculated approach. Like, we knew we didn't want to balloon up to like 2 or 3 dozen teams. We were only going to take 1 to 3 teams. We knew it was going to be super tight and competitive, and we knew that almost all the teams that were going to apply were going to get rejected. And it's not because they weren't great. It's not because we didn't value their investment in the ecosystem. It's because we knew for long-term success of Halo Infinite Esports that we just needed to be kind of slow and methodical and calculated with how we expanded. It's really important to us that, the teams that are in, feel like they can be successful and they have the support of 343 directly. And they're not just like, part of a group. Like, no, FaZe Clan is directly partnered with Microsoft. It's not FaZe Clan are in a group that are now partnered with Microsoft. So, it's really important to us that, and I'm just labeling FaZe because they're just top of mind, but like any of the teams, they could all reach out to us directly. We work with them closely, as a group with group opportunities, but also independently for different opportunities that they bring to the table. And you'll see more of that next year as well. So, for us, we want to make sure we're scaling in a way that's responsible for the size of the ecosystem. And, as we continue to add more and more features and more content to the game, we expect it to grow over time. And, we expect the esports teams to be able to sustain, more and more kind of investors in the ecosystem. And like I said, like, who knows, maybe one day it goes into a franchise system. But right now, we're content with the partnership program. We think the teams are as well. And we're really excited about the new teams that we're bringing on for year two, which we should be announcing later this year.
And you were telling me a little bit off air that you were just on Twitch a little bit ago, responding for a few hours straight for comments and criticisms from the community. And I think that most people that know you, Tashi, know how important that you feel transparency is. So I'm curious if that comes more on the side of what's important to you, or if that is because you sort of represent the Halo community on the Microsoft side or on the developer side, or if that is like really fundamental to Halo in general right now in its phase.
Yeah, I think for us, it's been kind of a multi-year shift as a franchise. And I think it started with, MCC, and also how we were adjusting the esports program a few years ago. And overall, it's just a stronger commitment from the franchise and the studio to just be more open and transparent with fans. And I want to clarify that a lot of fans think that means that at any given moment, at any point, we're going to share all the details of what's going on and where things are at. And like, that's not what that means. Like, it's a spectrum. And there are times that we just can't share things because, in the past, we've also tried to be transparent and plans have changed. and then we kind of get bitten in the ass for sharing things a bit too early. So it's a delicate balancing act, but yeah, it is important. Just to speak for myself, like it is important for me and our team to be transparent. I'm out there on Twitter. People have questions. Like I try to answer everything that I can. At events, I'm walking around. I'm hanging out with players and fans afterwards. Up until the late nights, and people just walk up and ask me questions. Why is this like this? Are you guys thinking about that? And I just answer them to the best of my ability. And fans and players were upset that certain teams didn't get into the partnership program. And so the community reached out, shout out to LVT Productions and Tools and Brandon, that whole crew there. They were like, hey, would you be willing to come on stream and, just let us ask you a bunch of questions and, live on Twitch. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So, that was a lot of fun for me. I think we're going to do more of those just because it's a good touch point. I got really positive feedback. I had people privately and publicly telling me, hey, this was awesome. Thank you for doing it. A lot of this makes sense. Like, I don't think there was any just like head scratching, like, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? It was a lot of like, okay, I understand now why this was the way it was, or how you guys are thinking about this for the future. So, for us, it's a dialogue, and, we can't always share everything the moment the community asks for it. And so sometimes they think you're not being transparent because I didn't get exactly what I wanted the moment I wanted it. But I think if you take a step back and look at how we've built this game, how we've built the ecosystem, how we've involved partners and players along the way, a lot of that has been behind closed doors, admittedly, but it has been a collaborative process, and I think it will continue to be that way.
I'm also curious to hear your narrative, considering that, like, for how online this community is and how available so many people are and how you can look things up that have happened in the past. And I'm just curious to hear, for as long as that you've worked with the Halo ecosystem, what like the story that you have of Halo being, the apex predator of North American esports, to it sort of not necessarily going away, but just not really being so present anymore in the conversation, to then coming back with Halo Infinite and really coming back with a big bang, and also maintaining the fervor that you and the team have sort of staked your name on, be like, this is what we're doing with Halo, and also this is what we're doing with Halo Esports.
Yeah, I think that narrative that you're talking about is actually very near and dear to our whole team. We have folks who have been part of the Halo community as content creators, as operators, as broadcast producers, as professional players for a long time. And I think, speaking for myself personally, like, I was a fan when MLG first dropped Halo Reach back in the day, and the esports scene was looking at each other saying, what do we do now? Like, that hurt me personally. You know what I mean? So, like, I think for this team, it is really critical for us now that we're in a position to, we're on the other side of the fence. We're not just kind of helpless fans anymore. We're, in the driver's seat along with the studio. It's kind of a personal mission for us to make sure, like, Halo Esports and the Halo Infinite program and what we're doing and HCS is as good as it can be, and it provides that stability. And I think that's part of why you saw, like, the full year roadmap announced on day one. It was kind of like, no one had really done that before in esports, and it wasn't something that we absolutely needed to do, but we knew, hey, this is going to send a signal of stability and strength. And it lets players, partners, everyone in the ecosystem know, like, hey, we've got a plan. We're not messing around, and here's the plan. And it just helped instill confidence. So we're going to continue to do kind of the yearly plan of showing everything, and just continue to build that confidence and stability in the scene, so that players know, like, hey, I can dedicate my time to playing Halo this year or next year or however much time. Like, I know there's going to be something there for me now. Whereas, as you mentioned in the past with Halo, like that hasn't always been the case. So we're kind of like pushing it over the line even further just to kind of rebuild that confidence and that faith in the franchise as a whole, even though we as a team, weren't responsible or accountable for all of the things that have happened to this franchise. So, we see it as like, just an important kind of statement to make for the franchise, specifically for the fans and partners and everyone who's so passionate about Halo.
And so now I want to ask you on a personal level, not necessarily as a representative of 343 or Microsoft or Halo, but do you have a favorite Halo esports moment?
Halo esports moment. Okay, this is a good question. I have to say the first event I attended, the MLG playoffs 2006 in New York. I went with my cousins. We had all been playing Halo for years with each other, watching kind of MLG events online, and finally we're like, hey, it's on our neck of the woods, like let's go. And so I think sitting in those bleachers, watching, these superstars, the Ogre Twins, Walshy, people like Ghost of Yami, Strong Side, those folks, like seeing them literally just a few feet in front of us competing in this epic tournament. And unfortunately, my favorite team, Final Boss, lost that tournament. But it was just, I think it was just awe-inspiring. Like, I don't know how else to put it. It was like a real, full circle moment of I feel like I've been part of this ecosystem and community for a few years now. And I got to kind of see it all in the flesh and really just be engrossed in it entirely. And I think you also have to understand that, at that point I was 18, high school. Back then it wasn't cool to talk about esports or playing video games or even watching anime. That was not pop culture back then. It was more counterculture. You didn't openly share that with your friends in school or anything like that. So it felt like the first time we got to kind of be ourselves, right? We were with our peers, with our community, our family, hey, these people nerd out about Halo Esports just like I do. You know what I mean? And that was thrilling to me as a teenager. So I have to say that moment and being at that event and being there with my cousins who, we all grinded Halo together. I still play. One of my cousins who attended the event with me that I used to play, we were just playing Halo Infinite together yesterday. So we still play and talk and sometimes reminisce about, those moments. So that one I think, really stands out as a super special kind of Halo Esports moment for me. The other one I'll call out, which I think is more kind of relevant to recent times, is just the kickoff event that we had in Raleigh. I think personally, as now kind of the lead of the esports program, and this was the first event and the first program that I kind of got to build and own top to bottom, and just seeing, all the support from the fans and players and our partners, and just how this event came together to be something special for the Halo community. That was, that's something that I will never forget. So I'd say those two moments for me kind of really stick out.
And do you also have a favorite Halo title? Not necessarily esports related, but just your favorite. What's your favorite Halo?
Halo 2. No doubt in my mind. That's the first game that I played on Xbox Live, started playing and chatting with other people. The nostalgia for me around Halo 2 is just too strong to break. But I'd say, Halo 2 for sure. And even to this day, Halo 2 in my mind is still holds up from a gameplay perspective. It's just so good to play on. I think Halo Infinite's probably second favorite. I think what the team has done to make a game that it kind of feels in spirit like your traditional Halo games, but it's kind of modernized and fresh. Yeah, I think is an underrated accomplishment, especially for like a 20-year franchise that has been so critical of all of the games over the years. And you're talking about a game that has changed developers as well, from Bungie to 343 Industries. Like, for the quality of gameplay that personally I feel like we have for Halo Infinite to be what it is, and the way it kind of married the whole franchise together in the way it has, like, I think is a remarkable achievement. And again, a testament to how this studio kind of listens to what players want.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I felt sort of allergic to first-person shooters because I was just terrible at them. So whenever I would play like competitive FPS, I would just get rinsed, and I just never. So then, yeah, I was just like always the runt of the litter. So I never wanted to play these games. And then I was hanging out with my buddy Chad, and we, like, on the weekends, we would just go through campaigns of games. And so Halo was like, then I played Halo years after it came out for the first time, just campaign. And it was, we had a blast, two player, and then we did it. And then Halo 2, when we booted that one up, that was also the first time where I was like, almost everything is significantly better than the first one. Like, most times with sequels, there's something you're like, okay, they made a change I don't like so much because I like the original so much. And I really felt, at least, I mean, as I said, I only really played story. I mean, he would just like absolutely annihilate me when we would play Slayer or something. But when doing the campaign, I was like, everything is just better. Incredible that they did that everything in Halo 2 is just what was cool about Halo Combat Evolved, but also better. I think the Halo 2 is a resounding favorite, I think, with many in the community, and especially people that grew up with it, where that was sort of one of the first person shooter sequels, I guess, that many people in that generation sort of played. But thank you so much for your time, Tashi. It was really great having you on the pod and chatting with you and hearing more about the Halo roadmap, ecosystem, the history about it. Loved having you on. Where can people find you if they're looking to connect with you online?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I actually can't believe we're out of time already. It went by so fast. But yeah, you can find me. You can find me mostly on Twitter at Tashi343i, and then also just give HCS a follow while you're there. That's where you're going to be getting the latest and greatest from Halo Esports.
Sick. And don't forget about the Halo World Championships happening at the end of October. It's going to be a gas, I can already tell. If you're there, don't at me because I will be incredibly jealous.
There's still time to come.
Really great.
We'll set aside a ticket for you.
Yeah. Okay. You do that. I'm having a kid in September, so that's going to be I'm going to have to talk to my wife about that one. But
we'll set aside 3 tickets then.
You put us. All right. Hear that, honey? All right, Tashi. Thanks so much, my man. Really good to chat with you, and let's go Halo Esports.
Thank you so much.